Live. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming in. Environment Sustainability Committee meeting on December 19th. Call to order. Any declarations, conflict of interest? Seeing none, need approval of the agenda. Councillor Beck, seconded by Councillor Twill. Approval of the minutes from November 25th, last meeting. Councillor Beck?
Yeah.
Councillor Twill, second. Any discussion from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll go right into reports and discussions. Item A, Nick's gonna be up at FCM new resolution.
Thank you, Chair. So this report,
Okay, stop you for 1 sec. Still getting the warning if somebody wants to join in. Is anybody online?
Perhaps that's the parent.
Talk to Alistair, but there's no one we're waiting on.
Okay, go ahead, Nick, and I'll see what happens on my end when I click join.
so this report is to provide council with details on a funding agreement with FCM to update a resolution to adhere to the borrowing bylaw. So we have a funding agreement and it's attached to the report here. So I'll just give you some details on that. So it's for the energy performance contract work that we did, specifically for this the work done on City Hall, Kent Street Fire Hall, and the West Royalty Community Center. We signed the agreement in 2023, but after legal took a look at the resolution that was made around that time, it didn't quite follow. It didn't contain all the information required by the borrowing bylaw. Which is listed here from A to I. Those are all the items that are required. So just a bit more information about the funding that part of this application. It includes a grant of $242,000 and a loan of $1,614,000. It's got the loan has a term of 240 months and interest rate of the greater of the following: Government of Canada benchmark bond yield plus an FCM spread of minus 1.08%, and the FCM minimum interest rate. So it would be just up to 2.66. So it would be just the greater of either of those two things. So that's kind of the main thing, is just to update the resolution with all that information.
Thank you, Nick. Is there a different or better or cheaper option than borrowing from the FCM?
I would have to defer that to finance. I'm not sure. I think the 2.66% is pretty low, but I'm not entirely sure what they would normally get.
And with the portion of it being grant money that we don't have to pay back, you would factor that in as well.
And I believe to accept the grant, we also need to accept the loan.
Okay,
And then if we don't want the loan, then we could just immediately
that
pay
was
it.
my next question because I wasn't sure. So, okay, any other questions from anyone?
I just think typically in those types of things, you're working with a group that's advocating to get the best deal for FCM. They're looking to get the best arrangement that they can for municipalities, so I'd be pretty comfortable in thinking that they've probably got the best interests of the city at heart. We can probably scour, we're probably not going to come up with a much better deal than that, I wouldn't think.
It's different. Anybody else?
Yeah, I was give it a go.
Councillor Twill? Your
Alice,
worship, welcome.
you're gonna have to help me here with this particular resolution. What are we looking to accomplish here in the short term and the long term?
Well, the resolution is really just to kind of accept the loan that's part of this funding application. And it just needs to contain the information that the borrowing bylaw requires.
Can I just jump in through you to the chair? So this already was through council and a resolution was passed a while ago. But what FCM and the lawyers are detailing is that the details of the borrowing bylaw, while the details were in the report, they weren't physically in the resolution. So we need to do a new resolution on something that's already been done and already been approved. But we just need a copy of a resolution that has those details in the resolution.
So does that mean we're rescinding the previous resolution?
Adding to it,
No, rescinding.
We'd have to rescind the
Do we have to rescind the
resolution
previous resolution?
if we're putting the same resolution on the floor.
is that the way it goes, Richard? You guys would know better than me, but we've been told we need a resolution that has all the, if you look at the report in,
So if this resolution has to have the following criteria, does that mean we have to rescind the previous one? Because the previous resolution didn't have all the information.
yeah, it sounds like that might be the case, yeah.
Seems a reasonable process, either rescind that one and do this one, or say in addition to that one, but probably cleanest to rescind the other one and have all these points there.
I think that's the way we would do it.
Secondly, we talked about doing the examination of, city buildings, for example, here at City Hall. Do an examination of the heat and everything else that goes with it. Because there seems to be a lot of deficiencies with this building when it comes to air quality and, it's either too hot in the summertime or too cold in the wintertime and then maybe too hot in the summertime. They never seem to get it right. And I don't know from a technical perspective whether this resolution addresses that or it doesn't. Can you help me with that, please?
Yeah, I can speak to that through you, Chair. So the resolution is more on the funding agreement that was part of that overall energy performance contract, which looked at a few more buildings, including the 3 there. But so we're still currently working with Honeywell on that performance contract. There's definitely still some kind of things to work out with them, specifically on this building, just on the heating and whatnot. They have completed all of the upgrades. There's just kind of more like controls problems that need to be solved for that.
You got another one?
Yeah, I understand a bit of Honeywell. Maybe sometime, Jessica, you can get you could kind of outline a chronological of how many times we've done studies on this building and other buildings in recent years. Well, let's say back the last 5, maybe 10 years. I'd like to just get some kind of a synopsis on that.
Energy,
Pardon me?
energy related, energy use?
Energy related, yeah. Because it always seems that we're doing these assessments or reassessments or whatever the case may be. And I just like to have a better insight, again, from a chronological point of view.
Sure.
Thank you, Jessica.
Mr. Chair, just on page 9, the amount proposed is 1.6 million, I'm just gonna, term of loan is 240 months, 20 years. Right. And is that fall within, I know we can amortize a mortgage over 25 years, but this is a 20-year loan at a spread of minus 1.08%.
Before you
Interest rate,
Before you come in, Your Worship, I asked basically the same question.
240?
But in order to get that grant,
Yep.
we have to do both together.
What's that?
We have to take the loan from the FC.
Oh, yes, oh, no, I understand that, I was just just wanna confirm the rate, it's 2.66% over 20 years.
Or the greater off, correct, Nick?
Yeah, the interest rate is the greater of those two things. So you know, you'd have to look up what the current Government of Canada benchmark bond yield is, minus the 1.0, and see which one is, comes out, but it would likely be around the 2.66 is kind of what the interest rate.
20 years, you can get a loan for 20 years, 2.66%, that's a pretty good deal. So, updated resolution, when was the first resolution passed? Is that in the package?
It's in the package.
It was in 2021,
2021,
correct?
you have it there?
Yeah, it's in the report. Council endorsed the initial in 2021.
Okay. So can't we just rescind that right here, make a recommendation to rescind it and forward the,
Can we rescind it, or do you need all of
no, make a
council?
recommendation to rescind it.
Okay,
That goes to council, rescind it, vote on that and bring in the new one.
okay,
we
motion
do
on the
that?
floor?
Yep, motion on the floor. Rescind the,
Second, yeah.
okay,
Seconded by
motion's
Councilor
on the
Beck.
floor. So
Second.
again,
Any
2021, yeah, 2021.
I'll second it.
If I could ask, this is all about Honeywell, correct? Is this Honeywell involved with this FCM? They also do they're involved with the Eastlink, Multi-Use Sports Entertainment Center. They're doing work out of Cary,
Separate projects, yeah,
but it's part of this package?
not related to this report.
Okay, okay,
This is just the fire hall and city hall and the West Royalty Community Center.
Okay.
West Royalty Community Center.
yeah. So are we, just since starting this, are we seeing some savings that was the purpose of getting into this, to see some savings? And that would justify borrowing the money, expending the money. Are we seeing the savings, are they greater than what we're paying out in the amount that we,
That was later in the package as well, there
I'm
it
just-
showed.
public record?
Yeah, so I can say
Open
one
mic.
thing, and Nick's more on the ground with this than I am, but
Yeah.
I do know that Honeywell has guaranteed savings built into the contract.
Okay, so
So
since
whether, yeah,
Intuit, Nick, have we seen savings, do we have a dollar value?
So,
Again, for public record, Mr. Chair.
through you, Chair, we haven't entered the savings phase of our contract with Honeywell yet. So we haven't been receiving those guaranteed savings yet, and they haven't been providing yet the savings reports. Just as kind of anecdotally looking at some certain buildings, there's definitely some savings on some of the buildings part of that contract. There's some lighting upgrades and whatnot, so there's definitely some savings with that. With City Hall, there's some ups and downs because 2021, it's hard to show the savings. So we really are gonna need Honeywell to provide those reports to really prove the
So
savings.
Mr. Chair, there's not just financial savings, there's also our carbon footprint. That's what the purpose of this effort or this initiative is, to reduce our carbon footprint, which it's doing, correct, Nick?
Yes.
Okay. Question? No question.
Any other discussion before
Yeah,
we call the question?
I'm fine.
Okay, questions about
Councillor Trio might have something.
motions on the floor, first, second, pass.
Rescind, yeah.
Okay, so initial resolution has been rescinded,
Recommendation, now we put the
Recommendation
other
to
resolution on the floor.
and do we have it, do we see it?
The resolution, do we have, what are we recommending? What's in that first part?
Include that,
what is
right?
exactly written in the staff recommendation would become the resolution.
I move it.
Moved by your worship. Seconded by Councillor Beck. All in favor? Passed. Okay. Forward to Council,
Is it unanimous, Mr. Chair?
Councillor Twill, yea or nay?
Yay?
Okay.
You didn't raise your hand, so it was.
Oh, sorry. Didn't realize for that form.
Well, okay, move on, capital budget, Jessica.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So today we are going to discuss capital budgets for the Environment and Sustainability and Transit Department. And I guess first I would say that you'll see in the report, there's a line that was provided by our finance director that it's important to note that the initial citywide capital requests exceed what is expected to be a sustainable capital budget by about 32% or $25 million. So In your package, you'll see multiple budget tables. And the first one is a scan of citywide departments. And so you'll see environment and sustainability at the top of page 70 in your agenda package. So environment and sustainability compared to the other departments of the city. So the total request for next year for environment and sustainability and transit is around 25 million. And then you'll see the other departments to follow. Public Works is broken down into, a dozen different line items or so, and if you add those all up, they're around 50 million. And then a few other departments with other capital requests. So what I'll do is just kind of quickly go through the pages, and then Richard also is going to say a few words about our capital budget as well. And then you guys can ask maybe more specific detailed questions after that. So if you'll allow me a minute just to kind of scan through these documents with you, and then we can get into more discussion.
Jessica, just before you go, just one quick question. On the 24-25 forecast, if you look at the total city capital projects, that if I look at those first two columns, we approved 68 million, and we've spent 22.8.
To date. Yeah, so the forecast for the full fiscal year is the 58.
That's all capital.
That's all capital.
So the forecast is gonna be 58 of 68.
Yes.
Just, I wanted to make sure it's reading right. Okay.
So the number in brackets is the decrease, the unspent, unpredicted spend. So, so the next year's fiscal request for environment, sustainability, and transit is 25 million. And then you'll see the 5-year projection after that, 26, 27, 27, 28, and 28, 29, and 29, 30. And then if you look to the right, you'll see the green column, which shows funding projected for next year at around $15.6 million roughly. So that's just a quick citywide scan and how we kind of stack up to other requests. And then if you go to the next page, you'll see a more drilled down table. And so there you'll see the breakdown of those capital requests. So the ones on the left that have GL numbers attached to them are ongoing projects or expenses that are already existing. And then you'll see a few projects without GLs at the bottom. Those would be new capital projects we're requesting.
Okay, what's a GL?
GL's the general ledger account number, like 010, 5600, yep. So on that sheet, you will see the blue is budget relating to this fiscal year. I'll speak to the next year's request, which is under the 25 and 26 column. So we will propose to continue with our bike rack program at $5,500. So that's cost shared with local businesses, so they pay 50% of that and we pay 50%. So the cost to the city for that would actually be $2,750. We want to continue installing water refill stations in city parks and city buildings at $25,000. We want to continue with our community vegetable planter program in our parks and green spaces at $7,000. We want to increase our street and park tree plantings. This is specifically the larger ones that are done through like backhoe public works support. So the reason you see the increase there from 35,000 last year to 100,000 this year is because we're removing it from the public works budget and moving it into our budget because we plan, spend, invoice, like manage that work. So it didn't make sense for it to stay with the public works budget. They support us with the crews, but they don't do the RFPs, RFQs, coordinate the work or anything like that. So that is why you'll see an increase there, in addition to a general just 50,000 was public works budget that will come off of their request. And 35,000 was from last year, and then a slight increase in light of the need to plant more trees. The next line is around the transit facility. So you all know that there's proposed plan to build an electrification transit depot over multiple years. So that split there, as you see, for the construction of that building, 12.5 next year and around 4 million the following year. Then you see a line for tree pits and planters. That was a project we tried to do this year, but you'll see it didn't happen. We had a successful vendor, but then they declined proceeding with it. So we're gonna keep that in there to deliver that work next fiscal year. We want to continue installing EV chargers, so that is for another EV charger unit for the public. You'll see 2 line items: battery storage, energy storage, and EV charging for transit. Those are costs related to the building, and those would come in 26-27. Then you see a line for transit infrastructure. So those are things like our fare boxes that get installed on the buses to accept payments. Those are bus stop signage infrastructure. Bus stop improvements in general, shelters. And then the 3 new projects, 82,000 proposed for a city solar project. 8,200 of that would come back to us in a form of a rebate. AT infrastructure, so of that $330,000, over 200,000 of that is funded. And the next one, a bike share program of 800,000, over 500,000 of that is funded. So on the earlier slide I showed you, the $15 million in funding, that is 500,000 for the bike share program, 200,000 for AT. And then the transit projects, I skipped over the buses, my apologies. The buses are $10.7 million. And so for the buses in the transit facility, we have ISIP funding contributions towards those. And each of these are broken down on the following pages and better show a description and the funding and more details. So I'll scan through the specific budget pages. So these speak to what I just quickly ran through in a bit more detail. So AT infrastructure, so like I said, 330 with 202,000 in funding. So a net cost to the city of 127,000. So we're proposing a bike bus pilot with schools and volunteers and parents to do group rides to and from school. Wayfinding and bike comfort infrastructure, rapid implementation for testing out cycling networks, which could involve bollards and flexible posts, paint, and then future AT construction pathways after we complete our 10-year plan that we're working on now.
Just what does that look like?
What's that
What
specific?
does that look like when you say a bike bus pilot local school? Like what does that, can you roll that out for me?
It's pretty remarkable. Anna can maybe email out a link to some, the videos speak for, I think they speak the best, but do you want to describe it, Anna?
In a nutshell, and then send us a link after.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you the link to Coach Balto and Bike Bus World. But it's, instead of having a yellow school bus that does a route and picks children up, you have volunteers on bikes in bright yellow jackets, leaders and followers, and they drive a fixed route, gradually picking up kids that are waiting by the side of the road with their bikes, and they stream into a group ride that is going en masse to school. We've previously done one-day bike to school events, but the beauty of the bike bus is it usually starts as a once-a-week program, except for during the winter. It might shut down during the coldest months, but it's to begin that culture and that habit of active transportation rather than driving to school.
Okay. Do we have a potential partner with that?
Yes, we've applied to the Climate Challenge Fund and
No,
we'll.
I mean a potential partner with the school.
Right.
Or
We're-
out and.
We have interest and sort of champions in a number of schools. We're working to identify 2 pilot schools for the spring, and credit goes to Kristen, she'll be doing a lot of this work. And then after a pilot with 2 schools, we want to expand it and offer it to all schools. It would be led by people in the schools itself, but we would offer support by providing perhaps an e-bike, some yellow jackets, assistance with route planning and policies for safety training by local nonprofit groups that we would pay for the initial training, but then ultimately it would be the schools and the school community that run the project in the long term. So we'd just help them to get it started up.
Mr. Chair, could I just suggest, I think Jessica asked that you give the whole budget.
Sorry,
I
yeah.
just wanna get the global
good.
picture.
Yeah, she wanted to
And
go through
because
the
if-
end and ask
Sure,
questions
sorry,
at the
if
end.
that-
No
Sorry,
apologies,
no
Esther. It just, I just wanna,
Quick,
I
do
have
the
lots
quick
of questions, so.
Okay, all right. I'll continue to scan the projects and then stop for discussion. So the solar battery energy storage system, this again relates to the transit depot for electrification. Solar power would feed into this when we're peak producing, store energy and allow it to be used later. So that's just a one-time expense in 26-27. Bike racks I mentioned, this is an ongoing project, 50-50 cost split with businesses. We do that every year. The bike share program, this is something that we've pitched to both. You might recall this from our budget last year where it was not supported. This year, we're coming back with substantial funding support for it. So we have $530,000 of $800,000 in funding secured for the launch of it next year. And as it looks like a weird split because the way they give the funding is partially in the beginning and partially at the end. So we're getting $864,000-ish for a $1 million project, $864,500. So this would involve bikes that the public can rent that are stationed in various spots throughout the city, adjacent to the AT network and trails and universities and schools. The next one is EV chargers specifically for the bus transit system. So that would be funded through ISIP in 26-27 and then no secured funding for the other years after that shown. The next one is the buses themselves. So in 25-26, we know that we have already purchased 3 more diesel buses and they're on there. We've awarded Nova Bus for electric buses for March 2026. You heard from the Cassidys recently, they've asked for an additional $1 million to buy some used buses to top up their fleet as they feel they don't have enough fleet to service the system properly right now. So that has been added in there as well. And then the fleet projections year after year are in there. And these are costs if we work towards electrification. And they are really for the future budgets, not knowing what funding really can be secured. So you'll see significant funding support in 25-26 towards buses, and then that reduces as we go down because I'm sure there'll be other funding opportunities, but not secured at this time. So 3 diesel buses for December 2025, 4 electric in March 2026, 6 electric buses in 26-27, and mini buses in 27 and 28, 4 electric buses in 28-29, and a mini bus, and 2 buses in 29-30. So that's the results to be achieved section breaks down what we would get for that money. The EV charger on this sheet is relating to like public use out in city right-of-ways or city parks, city buildings, community centers. So that is basically to allow us to do a charger a year. Building solar, so Nick is proposing we put solar on the Hillsborough Park Community Center. And in results to be achieved, you can see how much could be produced and the predicted payback of that in about 13 years. Cost of $82,000 and rebate of $8,200. The park trees we spoke of, so that's where Public Works is gonna move their money into our pot and we will spend it as we normally do. So around $100,000 per year, going up with CPI roughly. The transit facility, so this is the Mount Edward Road property build over multiple fiscal years with the partner funding shown there from ISIP. Transit infrastructure I mentioned, so bus stop improvements, pads and shelters and benches and poles and signs, fare boxes for buses. Technology is, we have to put some major efforts into technology for our system. So tech upgrades is forecasted there, fare boxes I mentioned, and a possible on-demand transit study for the future where us and our CATCC partners are interested in looking more in depth at parts of our cities that would work better serviced on demand, in addition to just the main artery routes. The tree pits and planters for the downtown, I'm just seeing a typo there. So that is specifically in our areas where we see roads, sidewalks, pavement, buildings, and really difficult to plant trees and replace trees after they're gone. So this would allow us to put some almost like armoring around the tree. They would be open at the bottom and allow the roots to go into the ground. So we want to test this out as a way to plant in our really constricted spaces where we can't just put a tree in a hole. And the veggie planters is an ongoing project to do workshops and education and around growing food, and people can harvest it in our parks. So that allows us to get new planters, but also replace all the other ones that we had that were wood when it started up that are needing replacement. Water refill stations, nice picture of Mayor Brown at the top there. So that allows us to keep working on offering refill stations in community buildings. Alistair would like to see us work on one for City Hall. We don't actually have a water refill station in City Hall. And an outdoor one he'd like to see near the Dairy Bar in Victoria Park. And that is a quick snapshot, and this team that's here today do all the work to deliver what I just spoke of and are the experts on various things. So between all of us, we
Just a
can
messenger.
answer, well, I'm here to support them. And between all of us, we'll do our best to answer your questions.
Thank you, Jessica. I think everybody has some questions. Alistair, you had said something. I think it was Alistair had one for Victoria Park, a water refill station. I would like to see one in Victoria Park as well, but also at the bottom for the dogs. I see them in other cities, and I've seen them where there's a bowl at the bottom that the dogs can actually refill, but the top, the
That one is. one of them.
two-legged one.
That is one of them.
That is one?
Yeah, that's what they put in the park.
Okay. So,
Yeah, it's cut off, you can't see the bottom.
where's that one at?
That's Connaught Square.
Ah.
That's
So,
219 or
somewhere around
220.
the dairy bar along the boardwalk there, because everybody walks their dogs.
And I should have added too, Richard was going to speak after I gave my initial remarks, so I don't know if you want to do that
If you
before the
want me to
question.
go first or wait for questions?
I wanna hear from,
What's that?
wanna hear from you, Rich.
All right, so following council's discussion around the depot build, and when we presented that it would only be 50% funded, we were asked to go and see if we could find more funding for that facility. So we reached out to the infrastructure secretariat and asked that question. We were advised that there's no more funding available. However, they did advise that it may be possible to redeploy that funding. And so we are now exploring potential scenarios where we could use that funding differently into the future. And we need permission from the federal government and council's wish, but we are looking at scenarios where we might delay electrification, and we may be able to use that money to purchase buses and support an expansion of our transit system here in Charlottetown. And recognizing a big part of the benefit to having transit is a good, robust system and more people leaving their cars at home and using the transit system. So we're exploring some scenarios that might be different than the full electrification initially and quickly of our system. Because we found out that the electric buses are about twice what we had originally thought they would be when we were planning this project, and then the depot came in at 50% over its budget. And funding into the future is not as certain as it is with our ISEP funding. With our ISEP funding, we have 73% being covered by the federal and the provincial government. So we're gonna look at scenarios for transit to present to council how we may be able to make better use of that funding moving forward and really support our transit system.
So, are you saying that we wanna put the depot on hold, or still build the depot, just not electrify it?
So there are scenarios that we're gonna run, and one of them would be that we postpone the depot well into the future, because if we can use that funding to purchase buses, that is a potential, that's one of the scenarios that we would investigate. And it would be buying diesel buses instead of the electric buses. So the diesel buses cost half as much as an electric bus, but it could allow us to have more buses in the system and get more people out of their cars and using the system. So the benefit could be there for us, as well as the cost savings to the city. So if we look at the 5-year capital projections and purchasing all of our buses as new electric buses, there will be a significant financial contribution by the city of Charlottetown to make that happen.
Just let me get this clear. We just voted on this resolution December 10th, and now you guys are telling us, let's put it on hold?
We are gonna run some scenarios for council's consideration. So council voted on
Building it.
that building, and as we run the numbers in our 5-year plan and look at the fact that we don't have a secured funding source for those electric buses going into the future, there will be a significant cost to the city of Charlottetown. So we're proposing that we present scenarios to council for their consideration.
Totally against it, Richard, because we went through this, right? And then we had to redo it. Like, this is getting to sound like the fire station out in West Royalty. Like, I wanna keep going on this project.
So what we want to present to you is that financial case and the implications are significant, and you could be discussing tax increases to continue to support the public transit system.
But anything we do could be tax increases. Anything.
As administration, we simply want to present you with scenarios.
We have to, I think we had to discuss with Jessica, I think it's something that we need to trudge forward and keep going, but I think we need to go.
Norman's next.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't, it's not saying that this is dying, we're looking at options, looking at possible scenarios to come back. It's not to say that it's not going ahead, or it will never happen. I think this is, personally, I think it's a prudent move to look at it and say, because one of the things, I mean, if you go back to what we heard in the report, there was one of the issues and one of the barriers, or whatever term we want to use, to getting people on buses is availability, routes, expansion of routes, improved timelines, and all those things. In order to do that, we need buses. And we need expanded routes in order to be able to do that, but for which we need buses. So I think it's a good idea to have options to come back. We have one option on the table, there might be some other things that we look at that may be better options, given the funding insecurities and uncertainties that are happening. I don't see it as a big issue, I think it's a good thing.
Bill?
Yeah, well, I voted against the original resolution. I felt I needed more time to understand this. And with the presentation Mr. McEwen just made, to my mind, speaks to that. I think we should be looking at the site as well. This gives us time now to look at the site. There might be other sites as well that we could explore, especially when it comes to expansion. We should be looking at 25, 35 years down the road. So I appreciate your candor, Mr. McEwen, I really do. And This gives us better time to, as you pointed out, to look at the options, to look at different funding scenarios, and I think it's prudent. I think it's doing our due diligence. And I support that. So, on that particular issue, that's where I stand, Mr. Chairman. I do have some other questions on the proposed budget.
Before we get into the other question, one question, what kind of a timeline are you looking for before these options will be presented to council?
During the budgeting process, so in January and February, we are running the scenarios. Some aspects of the scenarios have already been run. So the piece to it too is there's the capital side and then the operating side. The capital side, we have run the numbers, and on the capital side, there are scenarios to consider. Then to Councillor Beck's point, the more we can maybe reduce on the capital side, the more we can handle on the operating side.
So, Mr. Chair, on the prudence side, that should have been part of the process while we're going through this, correct, Jessica? Correct, Anna? That should have been part of the prudence of maybe we should put this on hold. We didn't do that. That wasn't a recommendation from any of you. Recommendation was to go ahead with the depot. Now, we voted on a resolution on December 10th to go with Wellington Construction from up west, Western Prince Edward Island. They've spent, all companies that submitted bids on this, spent lots of time. Nick would know as an engineer, Richard would know as an engineer, to put these proposals forward. So I disagree with both Councillor Twill and Councillor Beck that I don't think this is the way to go. That should have been part of the process. Prudence, let's step back, maybe we can't do all electric, maybe we should go all diesel. Novus in Halifax, they're having difficulty with too many buses on their streets and roads, not able to get through traffic. So yes, it's supposed to reduce number of cars, but other jurisdictions are saying that our buses are being held up because of all the cars and vehicles on the roads and streets. So the prudence of this whole project falls under Jessica and Annika and Richard. You guys should have looked at this before we took it to council on the 10th.
Well,
And I think it shows indecisiveness, not on our part, because if we have to rescind the resolution, that falls back in the administration too.
One sec. When did we know prior to the resolution going forward that funding might be kind of questionable? Did that come out after?
We added $5 million to our.
So it was presented in the report that the funding was down to being 50% for that. And we're going through the budgeting process that we're in now, and also hearing back from the province that we may be able to alter that funding. That's why, and it is late, and I'll take full responsibility for that. But I also don't want council 3 years down the road to say, wow, Mr. McEwen, you knew this at the time. You didn't advise us that this was a multi-million-dollar project. There may have been alternatives. So apologies, but I stand by bringing this forward to you now because I want us to make a good decision. And burying that is not something that I want to do. I want
I'm not saying burying it.
to be.
That should have been.
Oh, no. And
My words are that should have been exposed fully by management when we're going through this process. We went through it twice. Correct, Jessica? Twice.
Absolutely. So now there was another set of eyes on this and brought this forward, which is very prudent and very good for a council to have this opportunity. And much better for us to do it now before there are no contracts signed for the electric depot or the electric buses. And this is an opportunity for us to reflect on that and to make a good decision for the city of Charlottetown and the ratepayer, the taxpayers for Charlottetown.
Councillor Cool.
yeah, no, first of all, I want to congratulate the staff for bringing that information forward. As you pointed out, it is prudence. And, the significant costs that you pointed out in your presentation, Richard, you outlined it quite clearly, what it would take and what it would cost as we move, 2 or 3 years down the road. So I'm glad it was discovered now. I appreciate the staff's candor bringing that information forward. And that's what staff's supposed to do. Well, if they see a deficiency or disparity or discrepancy, that's their job, is to bring that to the committee. And I wanna congratulate the staff for bringing that forward, because this is a huge project that's gonna impact and affect the citizens of this community. Again, I'll reiterate, for the next 25, 35 years. So, look, resolutions, you can always rescind a resolution. It's not, that's not,
This is more than a resolution, Councillor Twill.
What?
This is a significant
Yeah, I
infrastructure.
know, but
It's not,
but
it's
he
not just
yes,
any
I know,
resolution.
Mr. Mayor,
Anyways,
but he
sorry,
pointed
Mr.
out the significant increase.
We do, because we
No,
voted on it.
hold it. They were back, they did their due diligence, there was assessing and reassessing on a daily basis.
Yeah.
They crunched the numbers.
Yeah.
He's looked at funding possibilities with the feds, he's bringing the information forward, he's doing what he's supposed to do. And I support that, bringing that information. I wanna know the information now, not 2 and 3 years down the road, like he said. So, you know what, they're doing their due diligence, and we should be applauding them for that.
So, Mr. Chair, just quickly. In the resolution of December 10th, we added another $5+ million to our expenditure, correct, Mr. Chair? It was your resolution. So we knew that there was an increased expense. The longer we wait to build it, the more it's gonna cost. That's the fact of the matter. So 15 now, 2 years down the road, it could be 20, could be 22. So that's why we went through this twice. Not once, twice.
Mr. Chair, I just wanna add that we do not have permission yet from the federal government on the funding piece. We need to put something forward to them and see if it is a possibility or not. So I mean, that would be part of our review and our analysis for this. And again, part of the thought process is that in the past, we have had very strong support for this type of project, and there may be a new program that comes out in the future where we'd also be able to have a much higher level of funding. Right now, we're looking at that depot build at 50% funding, and perhaps some of our future bus purchases at only 12% funding. So it really is an opportunity for us to look at having more funding support into the future and see what we can do with what support we have available today.
Thank you.
There's nothing on.
Can I ask questions? Mr. Chair?
Yeah, there's still other parts of the budget.
Yeah, so again, this happened in water and wastewater. We got the total budget, not less the funding. So for 25-26, it's 25 million. But that's not, the less the partner funding is not there, is it?
Yeah, so if you look
It's in-
on page.
It's in each of the
Yeah, and it's
slides.
on that broader sheet there on the screen, so the 25 is the total cost. And the 15,575 in green would come off of that in funding. And then each project sheet details it one by one.
I don't have, hold on,
Page 70.
There it is.
just 1 second.
So 25-26 total cost, 25 million, and then
It's gonna
15,
be 16 million,
sorry, say that again.
so for 25 less the partner funding, instead of 25 million, it'll be 16,140,000. If I go down to the bottom,
No, sorry, that the green is just the funding,
yeah,
and that 16 would come off of the 25 million.
of that 16, would be the
25
transit-
minus 16.
would be the transit shed, correct?
Well,
The
it-
majority of it.
The majority of it is ISIP, but there's also a bunch for AT, so there was 500,000 for AT projects.
The lion's share would be the transit shed.
The bulk of it is transit, yeah.
So if I can go to page 71, it talks about your budget as it breaks down, correct? And you have 300,000 for AT infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Anna said that there's more to than, it's not just making pathways, it's about buses and a number of different components. I've been asking and pushing, the department on building more active transportation pathways. As a cyclist, as an e-biker, this is not the most bike-friendly city in all of Canada. And I've asked, I know we had the active transportation task force in the last council, And one of the great ideas that came out of that was to build that active transportation pathway that runs parallel to the arterial highway from the Hillsborough Bridge right out to Upton Road. Not to Upton Road, sorry, Mount Edward Road, to connect with our Confederation Trail. So of that 330, are we making any trails? Or is it just the bus issue, partnering with the other potential partners or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll start and then Anna
Yeah.
can jump in. So I guess my first part is that there are multiple departments that build AT
Yes, I know that.
networks. So Public Works could better speak to the AT networks they're building next year. I don't know off the top of my head. Same as Parks and Rec, they build AT networks through our park systems. Anna's working on a 10-year AT plan. We're forming the regional group. What we have funding to support is a bike share program, as we talked about.
Yep.
Bike bus.
And then the bike bus. And then when the 10-year plan is complete and we have, for our department, better direction, Public Works and Parks and Rec already have their direction. When we have consolidated the 10-year plan, we'll have more direction. So if you look at the project sheet for the AT infrastructure, the future years, that would be AT infrastructure. So actual like trails and paths and lanes on the ground. So Anna, you wanna
So
jump?
going forward, like 2027, 2028,
Yeah, so that
that's
would be for
500,000?
infrastructure.
That'll be pathways, or is that again, buses and working with other partners?
I'll pass it over to Anna.
Before you, just I have concerns with your bus bike, and as you mentioned, it's not a bike-friendly city inside the city.
You know that.
Around the outside, I e-biked it, your life's at risk going up North River Road
Yeah.
during rush hour traffic. So the last thing I would wanna do is put my kids on a bike going down North River Road trying to get to school. Until we can get the pathways in place, then I'd be in favor of the bus bike project. But I just wanted to put that on the record, so.
So speaking through you, Chair, the bike bus pilot project, I think Kristen would know the exact number, but it's more like 30,000, 50,000 of that total 330. So it's a small amount for really just setting up the project and getting it started. I 100% agree, we would not be routing a bike bus through unsafe infrastructure. We would be only putting it on low-speed streets. It is also one of the reasons that a group ride is inherently safer than individuals cycling to work on their own. And you have training to address safety issues. But if there's not a safe route, you don't do it at that school until there is adequate infrastructure. The AT plan is currently underway. You all awarded the contract for development of that 10-year plan to WSP at last month's council meeting, and we've begun work with them. We have a list of 20 stakeholders in the cycling community and business community, and we're beginning the engagement plan to bring those folks together to be recommending specific routes for where active transportation infrastructure will go. I just had a really great meeting with the Mount a couple of days ago, and they identified that there's a path on their land that connects to the back of UPEI that is not a formal or well-maintained pathway, and that could very easily be a priority for us. So this funding that is $500,000 in every year, it also includes sort of $300,000 for a rapid implementation network. So this was one of the recommendations from WSP in their 10-year plan proposal, is that immediately after completing their network analysis, we can rapidly implement sort of temporary bike lanes with a light amount of infrastructure using things like flex posts, paint, bollards, rather than building full asphalt and concrete lanes, and it can be used to test future active transportation routes, and then if there's adequate uptake, then they can become part of the formal network with hard infrastructure over the sort of 4 and 5 year timescale. So there will be active transportation routes built under this budget next year, but it would be using a rapid implementation approach like has been used in Halifax over the last few years with modular concrete blocks and flex posts. But exactly where they would be is not yet defined, and that'll be part of what comes out of the 10-year active transportation plan and the recommendations from WSP after they've done their sort of citywide analysis.
So if I quickly follow up.
Yeah.
I believe in Toronto, they've already started taking out some of those bike lanes because the city of Toronto has made it quite clear there are problems with taking away from laneways. So I think what you're talking about is, but in Halifax, they've taken a portion of the street, instead of building an ATP, an active transportation pathway, they take from an existing roadway, correct?
It depends on the exact street, and
But would
I
that be
would
part of
encourage you to look into the Toronto.
No, but would that be part of it?
situation. It depends on which road we're looking at.
But it would be part of maybe taking some section of a road that's already in place, correct?
Depending on which road it is.
So just quickly, last year, how much, we didn't spend any money on the AT, I don't see anything like it says AT infrastructure, it's blank, blank, blank. Am I getting that wrong? And then 25-26 is 330,000.
Yeah, so the AT infrastructure projects that we are showing you today would be new projects.
Yes, but nothing we did this past year or the year before.
You approved a budget for us to do the 10-year AT plan this year.
Last, okay, that was all we approved, there was nothing else in the pro. Now, in terms of, as you said, Jessica, working with Parks and Recreation, Public Works, I don't know how many times it's been said around this council table, we have to work outside the silos. So, we have to be talking to each other. Richard is Director of Community Services, so it falls into Public Works, Parks and Recreation. I believe environment sustainability, it falls under his directorship. So he's the point of all these departments working together. We just need more working together because, as the chair said, I've been on these routes in Charlottetown and I've been asking over and over again that, let's go back to the Josh Underhay plan that he presented to the former council back in 2014 to 2018. Let's look at Mitch Underhay's plans and community meetings that he's hosting. Let's get these plans together so that we can get a safer bike routes for all of us,
Yeah.
not just EV users.
No, no.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I think we are 100% in support of what you're saying as well.
Yeah.
And the Bike Friendly Communities work is, the consultants have that, and that is feeding into their analysis. And definitely the 10-year plan will involve all the departments coming together and looking at what's planned and coming up and priorities and construction. So that's the plan.
Just one last question on this, Mr. Chair. So the 10-year AT plan, we have our adjoining communities, Stratford, Cornwall. I know that Logan
Dawson's.
Dawson is now part of that. He's coordinating, he's quarterbacking this hopefully this effort of more regional cooperation. Does the AT plan, the 10-year plan cover that? Are we looking at the adjoining communities? Is it in the report, Anna? Or is it just for Charlotte?
Cornwall and Stratford already have their own internal AT plans,
10-year plans?
and we've asked WSP to look at their plans to inform our own.
So both Cornwall and Stratford have 10-year plans already in place?
Yes.
Thank you.
I like what I'm hearing.
Questions?
The 10-year plan. So there's a bunch of stakeholders. Excuse me. I'll come back to it later.
Oh, we're gonna move on to the next report though? or-
Yeah.
What?
I'm not done with the budget yet.
Oh, okay, sorry. Carry on.
Can I just go down to page 75, the bike share? So, from the partner funding, we're looking at a net expenditure of 267,000. Okay. I, like many of you, have been in Toronto, Montreal. My issue with bike share, where municipalities are involved,
So is it actually?
is the helmet issue. Toronto, scooters,
Same as our students here.
cycling, we're not enforcing it, right? That's a police issue. But if we're going into the bike share program, that means there's a liability. The cheap part is getting the bikes, it's maintaining it thereafter. Because I think this covers how many bikes? 80, 100?
Between 60 and 180 is what,
60 to 180 bikes. So that's my concern, is that cheap part is buying. The capital expenditure, it's a one-time purchase. It's then maintaining it afterwards. Then there's the safety and security, the liability of these, of this system. That's my issue. That's why I was not much in favor of it last year. Hopefully, Anna, Jessica, and the team here can find ways to enforce using helmets, because if we own it and we have cyclists going around the city without helmets, people will say, you don't even practice what you preach. Why do you have it?
It's our insurance, I assume.
No, but if,
We're doing the bike share, it's our insurance or something, liability?
yeah,
Is that what we get to?
if we're operating it, and if we don't enforce wearing helmets, then telling other people we're not practicing ourselves.
Any comments on that?
Helmets will be part of the RFP. We have a draft RFP, and there are bike share programs that provide helmets locked to every bike. And if somebody uses or does not use, like we can put in the waivers and liability when you sign up that wearing a helmet is, I mean, it is already the law on PEI, and
Yes.
if we provide the helmet, then the liability is on the individual if they choose not to wear it.
And Mr. Chair, as you know, it's the same with scooters. He has the helmets there. People are not using them. But that's RAF, what's his name?
Please,
Tap.
TAP, so that's TAP. But now, with us, it'll be City of Charlottetown bike share program, if we're gonna operate it.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, the proposal is that it's administered through a third party who would bid on operating it. So when you speak to the maintenance, that would be handled through whoever is hired to run this program for us.
And the last question is of the EV chargers, we're only looking at one for this year, is that what I heard?
Yes.
there's no funding available for them?
Is it at level 2 or level 3?
Level.
Nick? Level 2? That's a day long charge, if you wanna get a full charge, right?
But I will say through you, Mr. Chair, Nick's talking with people at the province who are also making plans for charger installations throughout the island and what that looks like for Charlottetown.
What is the difference between a level 2 and level 3?
What's a level 3?
Like the difference in cost?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it jumps up like 10 times, so like a level 3 might be $150,000 for a single unit compared to like a $5,000 unit really, plus install, so for a level 2.
So if you put a level 2, I don't even care, but if it's gonna be an all-day charge, but if you spend money for a level 3, somebody can be, how long would they be in and out for a full charge? Couple hours? Get more cars through.
Looking at the charge point data that we collect, people really only stay at our stations for about 2 hours or so. You know, people aren't sitting there getting a full charge from 0 to 100 on their car. They're really just doing some shopping and getting a little bit of charge while they're doing that. So for a level 3, that really is meant for going from 0 to 100 in a quick in a short period of time, and it's more meant for like if you're driving along the highway in your EV and you're low, you can charge up really quickly and continue on, similar to like similar to a gas vehicle stopping at a gas station. Where these level 2s are more meant for when you are planning to spend a few hours, and then the idea isn't to be able to bring somebody fully up to charge with them either.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there's the one out at Canadian Tire, that's a level 3.
Okay.
That's only at 50 kilowatts. That was one of the first to be installed. The newer ones are now 150, 200, 250.
What's it at the Causeway?
They're Tesla, they're level 3.
But they can charge any car?
Not yet, not
No,
yet.
just Teslas.
You would need an adapter.
That's it.
Okay. Councilor.
I wanna go back to the 10-year plan for the active transportation pathway. So, you're going through that process. Are we able to bring proposals forward as well?
Yes.
Are we able to, if requested, come up with a conceptual design
councillors are listed as stakeholders to be consulted as part of the plan, yes.
I thank you for that, but be a little more progressive here. Offer the conceptual design to be able to showcase the community. Are we able to do that?
So as part of the development of the AT plan, we, rather than beginning from first principles, and doing a broad public consultation, we really want to recognise the excellent work that Bike Friendly Communities did just 2 years ago in 2022. And so we have provided the consultants with all of the public input. BFC provided us with huge spreadsheets listing all of the 2,000 public comments that were provided into them. So all of that background input and their network recommendations are being provided to the consultants. They're reviewing that, they're reviewing plans from Public Works, from Parks and Rec, from the University Avenue Master Plan, Spencer Drive, for example, all of which have AT pathways. They'll be synthesizing that into network recommendations and coming up with recommendations, and then at that stage, and they'll also be taking comments from these 20 core stakeholders that we've identified. Then they'll be coming up with first recommendations and then doing a broader round of public consultation based on conceptual designs that do go out into the community, so that when we do the broad public consultation, we will have conceptual designs that we gather feedback on before finalization of the plan.
All right, so,
Yeah. And that'll include both cross sections and network maps.
so bottom line is, we're not able to request a conceptual design of a particular project.
Maybe we can talk about that offline if you have a specific project
Yeah, I do.
in mind.
Yeah, I do.
That would be very welcome input,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I'd like to promote it. I think it'd be a great asset to the city.
But wouldn't it be any different than, like, Bike Friendly Communities went and did their concept?
That's right.
So that's their concept.
That's
So
their
if you have
Yeah, I
another
do.
concept,
That's
then
exactly, they
I
have
think,
their
I think at
concepts.
this point in time, it's taking whatever information people may have. I think that's part of the consultation process, is that we get that information, and if there's a better concept, if there's a good idea out there, we're in the works. I don't think anything's, I think everything's etched in sand. So, sure,
And
I would encourage that.
WSP they have the capacity to assess this against, national standards and projects they've worked on, and international standards as well, to come up with, they were selected on the basis of having very strong best practices. Thank you.
Any other questions, Drew?
Yeah, I want to get back to the money set aside for tree planting. As you know, Jessica, I'm a big promoter of trees being replanted in the neighborhoods and communities. I know you outlined some of the challenges with respect to infrastructure previously. But I truly believe there's gotta be a way that we can come up, maybe introduce a totally new program for tree replacement. I think it enriches neighborhoods and communities. We lost a lot of trees to Dutch elm disease. A lot of trees had to come down because of infrastructure. Well, I'd like to come up with a whole new strategy to plant trees in neighborhoods and communities. I look at Walton Drive, I look at Upper Prince Street. I mean, from a historical perspective, that's what made those neighborhoods. That's what made, we go back in time and talk to the folks that raised their families there and grew up there, people that were born in those homes. To my mind, we lost a significant part of the character of these neighborhoods, and I'd like to try to recapture that. I don't know what the strategy is, but it's not just about, I know we need trees downtown, I support that, but it's gotta be, getting back into the old neighborhoods and communities. And I did mention at our last meeting, talk about the official plan, the zoning and development bylaw. Trees should be part of the criteria when we're approving, development. We have prerequisites and they have to follow, developers have to follow prerequisites. maybe it's easy for me to say, but I do believe that trees should be an indispensable prerequisite. Well, maybe we can have those discussions with developers before they submit their final plans and try to help enrich their, what they're proposing. Because you drive through some of these neighborhoods now, these suburbs, it's just not the same. Like, it looks bare. It's bare, the backyards are small, it's like something you see in Mississauga. I don't wanna become another part of Mississauga. I wanna go back to what made this city, the forefathers did a tremendous job in carving out that vision. Why can't we just follow that same vision? Don't have to reinvent the wheel. Anyway, so I don't think that's in your, I don't believe it's in your capital projects, but that's something I think we need to work towards. And I'm very supportive of.
But Simon did report last meeting, like last year we've never planted as many trees as previously, trees and shrubs that in the city of Charlottetown. I do agree with you, the newer subdivisions that are being developed, there's no plan in place that developers
Trees.
need to plant trees. When you drive through, there is no trees.
It's terrible.
But when you look back to previous mayor Frank Zakem, he's responsible for most of these mature trees that we see around the city of Charlottetown. The problem at that time, there was no diversification. There was one species everywhere. That's why we started losing
I'm talking about trees long before he came along.
No,
I'm
but
talking trees that were on Walton driving up of Prince Street, they were there for over 100 years.
no. We no, I
So
think the staff
what I-
have done a great job last
I
year.
know, but that's what I wanna come in, I want a plan that clearly illustrates that and we can showcase to the community and be able to collaborate with the community and get their input as well and it's, we don't have that now.
And you wanna add
It's
to
just
that,
build
Simon?
at all costs.
Just goes. Well, for you, Mr. Chair, it's music to our ears, Councillor. I think that we live and breathe planting more trees. As you will remember, earlier in April, we conducted a post-Fiona study of their city, looking at the impact of Fiona, but also looking at their canopy levels prior to Fiona as well. And you're absolutely correct, there have been a significant decline over time of canopy anyway in the city, and then Fiona kick-started that as well, so we declined even further. So we want to plant more trees for 100%. That's why we put forward the capital budget that we have with a modest increase, but we also have funding in our operational budget for planting additional trees as well through projects where we're partnering with groups such as the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Trans-Canada Trails and Tree Canada, all of which are contributing to the numbers that we're able to plant. But as we said in our previous meeting, we have a long way to go to reach the target of what the post-Fiona strategy laid out of what we would need to do to restore. And trees just take a long time to grow. I want to touch on one point that you mentioned. The streets that you're talking about, the ones downtown in particular, the struggle we face is that we're coming in now decades after infrastructure has been placed underground, and sometimes more recently with fibre optic in particular, that really kind of prohibits where we can put trees. We can't be taking out the fibre op from anyone, and we have to find a way to plant in innovative ways, which is one of the reasons why we have these this line item for the tree planters idea, to try and build us more space in different areas to be able to plant trees. There's no point in us planting trees in areas where they have no hope of surviving, and with expanded roads and the new infrastructure and all these things, we can't plant back in the same spot in the same way, so we have to go with these elaborate plans of us using planters or those kind of structures to be able to achieve the same goal that perhaps we could have more easily achieved 30, 40 years ago. And as I say, it just takes us a long time to grow a big tree.
I'll finish it off with this. London, Ontario, it's called the Forest City.
Yep.
We look at what the standards and what their practices are, you know, from both a historical and contemporary perspective. We get some information, see what they do. They're pretty committed, pretty rigid when it comes to protecting trees and planting trees. So that'd be a good litmus test, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely.
City like the City of London.
We through you, Mr. Chair, we spent some time providing feedback from the official plan, doing very much that. That was, I think, we provided significant input into the official plan that basically was talking about those things, looking at Guelph, Ontario, goodness me, where else was Markham, Fredericton. Like there's various cities across the across Canada that are leading the way with trying to ensure that when we have developments that they minimise impacts on their canopy and new ways are found to replace what's taken away.
And if I could add, Mr. Chair, signed in this past weekend, I was speaking to Ian Douglas, Cool Breeze Farms.
Oh yes,
And
I'll make it.
he said one thing Charlottetown is doing right is that they're planting the small trees, they're more cost effective. Some of his customers come in looking for 4-year-old trees, so you're looking at what, $300-400? And I said, Ian, it's not only planting the small trees, but it's also partnering with our corporate partners, i.e. TD. We did a couple of plantings with their over the
TD,
this
Canada.
past fall.
Yeah.
Great idea. So keep doing the good work. Thank you, Simon.
Move along, next up with the switch program.
Switch, we're back to switch out.
So this one is just to update council on the status of the switch program and to request withdrawal of the loan top-up that was previously requested. In May 2024, council approved an application to FCM to increase our or extend our previous funding agreement with FCM to add $2 million to the agreement, contingent on a relaunch that included matching private capital from provided by SwitchPace. But so with discussions with the finance department, the finance department is a big component of the switch program, and we wouldn't be able to run the program without them. But it was felt that the department should stay focused on core services and not support programs beyond its core services. Based on a few things, like the proposed new program wouldn't be able to offer a 0% interest loan anymore. It would be a low interest loan, maybe more in a 4 or 5% interest. And finance department and ourselves as well didn't have quite the confidence that the program would have quite as much uptake as before. So yeah, the program has been very successful, but it was just determined that we shouldn't. We just don't have the capacity to run it anymore. I have included some numbers, just kind of an impact assessment of the program. So 743 projects in total were completed. The total cost of all those projects was $9.66 million. The annual savings to the homeowners is $874,000 a year. And the annual greenhouse gas savings is 1,960 tons a year. That works out to be about an 11-year simple payback of doing all those projects. So yeah, this is I'm proposing a resolution to withdraw that loan top-up request.
Thank you, Nick. Any comments, questions?
I think you're right, the switch program was a great program. It certainly was a great incentive for a lot of our residents that took advantage of the program, and all I've got was good reviews.
Won an award in 2023 for the work that was done in 2022. With Stratford, yeah. Well,
Katie University.
no, it was,
So Nick, Mr. Chair,
yes. Go right ahead.
Nick. Wolfville's not going back into it. Stratford. So the three communities that were initial partners or test sites, they're saying no.
Yeah, well, so Wolfville was kind of done of their program
Yeah.
very quickly. Similar with Stratford, they're smaller and they went through their funding a lot sooner. They did get some top up and continued it on for a little longer, but they're also basically at a similar point that we are, where they're now just collecting loans and the program's over. So this idea was just a similar thing, to keep it going for a little bit longer in hopes that we could keep it sustaining, but it just didn't have the support, I guess, from all the departments.
And as Citizen Brown, we took advantage of it. Lori and I had the audit, the energy audit conducted by one of the contractors through PACE. We had insulation blown into the attic and a heat pump, all at zero interest. It's all paid off, no debt. So, great program. I'd love to see it go on, but now that it's going with an interest rate that, and again, I'm trying to figure out if someone doesn't pay his or her money, pay back the funding, then is it the city or PACE that puts the lien against their property? Again, this is for the public record.
Yeah.
It would be,
As it currently is, or if we were to extend the program?
if we're extended.
So if we were to extend it, it would be similar where the city would put a lien against the property and, ultimately be liable for that funding.
And under the old program, it was the same scenario, correct?
Although, Julian from Switch Pace will point out that we've had no sort of defaulting happening in our program and in any of the programs he's kind of run before. So it would be, rare, but, not unheard of that it could happen, for sure.
So, Mr. Chair, I might have missed it, but do we have a resolution here, or is this just information only?
The recommendation is to withdraw our loan top-up request. In the report, the staff recommendation is the resolution.
It's in the recommendation.
You need a mover and a seconder.
I will,
So moved.
I'll move that.
Moved by Councilor Beck. Seconded?
So again, it's to withdraw from the program.
Yes.
The new program.
Withdraw our loan top-up request.
Withdraw our,
Loan top-up.
I got a question. If you already answered, I apologize, but have you had the opportunity to examine any other options? Any other possibilities? To not only maintain a program like this, possibly even add other features. Have you had that opportunity?
Through you, Chair. So the PACE, which PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. That's sort of a tool that municipalities can use to provide funding for upgrades to your to homeowners' houses, normally energy related. So there are a number of PACE programs across Canada and the United States as well too, but there's not a ton of them. There's a few in Nova Scotia, and most of them do have, an interest rate, attached to them. So it would be, we were quite lucky when we got this funding, to have a zero interest rate. We were kind of one of the first really, to have this program, and in such a big, funding opportunity for it as well too. That we were kind of the leading edge, and now there are other PACE programs. So, to use them as examples, it would be to have an interest rate, and that's what most of the other ones do. It's something that we can continue to look at other funding options to be able to restart a program in the future. It's not saying that the same model can't be used again for at least maybe even on a smaller scale. It was really kind of the interest rate thing that was kind of a sticking point that the people weren't gonna wanna accept it. And specifically in PEI, there's a lot of funding programs through the provincial government, and there's even 0% interest loans that you can get. So it's almost a duplication in a lot of cases. If somebody's putting in a heat pump, they would just be able to go to the province and get the same program anyway. So us having that program kind of duplicated things.
Is there any thought given to people who are looking to revitalize their homes, do renovations? Switch program is one incentive. Possibility of reduced taxes or taxes, tax incentive, people to help assist them in renovating their homes. Some of these older homes in the older parts of the city, it's such a venture.
Through you, Chair, I'm not familiar with if we've looked at something similar. Something we could look into for sure.
Yeah, if you could, please, because it wouldn't be the first time that the city has embarked upon forgivable taxes. We do that for other organizations here that play a significant role in our economy. But I'd like to reach out to people that find it very difficult to operate their homes. Cost of oil, the cost of electricity, and the time I think is right in terms of offering any tax incentives to residents that are experiencing these difficulties. Now that seems to be becoming the norm now as opposed to the exception. So maybe we can explore those possibilities.
Okay, motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair, just a question on the floor, it's on the floor. So again, getting back to the FCM switch program. With this new program, is FCM still a guarantor, or what will be their role? I'm just trying to get like clarification for the public record.
So
I'm looking at switch Charlottetown 2.0.
yeah, so with this resolution, we would not continue with
Until
2.0, so we would just continue with our what we're calling 1.0,
Yeah.
which is what we're kind of aiming towards in the first place. This was just an opportunity that came up that we will now not go forward. So since the program's done, we're just gonna continue collecting loans. Still using Switch Pace, at least for the time being, as the loan collection.
So with the zero interest rate, was FCM guaranteeing that zero interest rate?
Yeah, so our
But they're not endorsing Switch Charlottetown 2.0 because there's an interest rate attached to it, correct? So FCM is out of it?
so we still have our funding agreement with FCM for the $7 million we have with them.
For 1.0, Switch Charlottetown 1.0,
Yeah.
right. 2.0, there wouldn't be there.
So with 2.0, they would have contributed $2 million at 0% interest, but it was contingent on matching that with another $2 million from another source, and Switch Pace had kind of come up with the plan to supply that.
Yeah, through an interest rate.
Yeah.
Okay. Question?
No, I need a seconder. It's moved by Councilor Beck.
What's that?
the resolution.
Didn't you second it? No. Okay, you got a second.
I don't have a seconder yet.
One second.
Seconded by
Do you need a do you need a motion?
There's a resolution in the package, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the package.
Question?
Withdraw from the FCM loan top-up. Questions called? Councilor Creel?
I'd like to make an amendment.
It's our resolution, friendly amendment. Do you agree with your friendly amendment?
Well, here it's gonna say.
What's a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to request our staff to go back and look at, besides, pulling back from this particular program, see other incentives I mentioned, maybe tax incentives to help people that are experiencing difficulties financing renovations. See if there's any other possible way to help assist with some of the challenges that they're facing when it comes to revitalizing or doing renovations on their homes and properties. I think it'd be it's a goodwill gesture on our part, and work doesn't stop, it continues on. We just have to look at other avenues, other vehicles.
So what's the friendly
So I'd like
amendment? What's the friendly amendment? To delay it? Defer it?
I didn't say delay. I said to explore other options besides what's there. You know what I'm driving at. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, absolutely, that's staff's goal is to look at what's next. So that will happen, reviews of other opportunities and other ways to get homeowners reducing energy and support.
it could be waiving the taxes. I mean, we do that with other corporations and organizations here in our city. So I'd like to at least bring that amendment forward.
Sure, I think we can put that in and say, so whatever we have with the resolution, and furthermore, that professional staff explore other options,
Exactly.
whatever it might be.
Because I think, I want to give some of these folks, give them some hope and maybe open up the doors to further consultation.
But to clarify the friendly amendment, we don't go ahead with the original resolution. We find that information, then come back. Is that what you want to do?
No,
No,
You want this resolution to go forward with the friendly amendment?
The friendly amendment, yeah.
So we will rescind, or we don't go ahead.
but direct staff to look at
with
other
what we
options.
have. But we also directing staff to continue to explore further options, as per Councillor Twia's request.
So that's the friendly amendment we're voting on.
That's
It's
the
to-
friendly amendment.
Not voting on the resolution to get out of pace
No, we
or
are,
get,
In addition to
in
that.
addition to,
is that what you're asking for?
Yeah.
Clarify?
So we
Okay.
vote on vote on the friendly amendment.
And to
Seconded,
look at every-
Councilor Beck?
Every means at, their disposal. Because our job is to give people hope. Not just shut the door.
Second to the friendly amendment,
You second the second?
I'll move the amendment.
he's moved the
Okay.
amendment.
yeah, I'll support that.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor of the friendly amendment? Back to the original resolution as amended by Councilor Twill. Favor? Unanimous? Okay. Lots of discussion on that, yep, thank you.
It's an important
Thank you
issue,
very much.
important in this city.
Alright, we're moving on in time here, Anna, annual update on transit.
I will try to be brief with this report, seeing the hour and knowing that the report in closed session might require more discussion. So on page 127 and onwards of your package, this is just an annual report on the state of operations. We have a little graph showing the continued increasing ridership trend that's really rocketed up in the last few years, largely thanks to the provincial investment in both operational subsidy and fare subsidy. I've been more brief with the strengths of the network, and I've added more detail on the weaknesses side not because the weaknesses outweigh the strengths, but because the weaknesses are the areas of focus for staff to continue to grow and improve upon the system. So on the strength side, we do have a very high average ridership per service hour. We have very strong and growing demand. It's very low cost to transit riders. We have the recent route clarifications that we've done on the network core have been very well received. They've simplified the system and are helping to support ongoing ridership. We've completed the bus stop inventory this year, and we have really good data on our bus stops for the first time ever. We have a really great transit operational and staff team. I was just out at 7 Mount Edward Road yesterday, and on a day-to-day basis on the operations, I'm on the phone with Matthew Cassidy nearly every day, and we have a really good working relationship at the operational level, and that's deeply appreciated, and we're always getting good feedback about the driving team. And all of our buses include wheelchair access ramps, kneeling bus capability, and bike racks April to November. And I actually just discussed with Matthew yesterday that this winter, rather than next winter, we might be able to trial keeping them on for the first winter ever, rather than taking them off. And I did see a bus with a bike on the front going up North River Road just yesterday morning. On the weaknesses, the areas that we need to address, I think you heard from Mike and Matt Cassidy about the extreme age of our fleet. We have 21 buses in the yard at the moment, of which 12 are operating beyond the end of their useful life. They're being kept alive only through the excellent maintenance work and the dedicated maintenance work of the operating team. 3 buses will retire in February. A further 3 need to be retired the next financial year, and a further 6 need to be retired the following financial year, and in that time the fleet needs to grow by at least 1. So in the next 2 years we need at least 13 new buses. Council has already passed resolutions for 7 more, but we need another 6 just to maintain our current level of service with a modest increase to address at least one of the many route demands that we have. Overall, the bus stop conditions, having completed the inventory this year, I would label it overall as poor bus stop conditions, and I think if you speak to most of our transit riders, they would agree. So I've got some details there about lack of signage, lack of schedules, lack of accessibility, snow clearing, and we're gradually making a plan to address those, improve concrete pads, improve shelters, improve snow clearing. The fare system is an issue that we're aware of. It relies on paper passes and has some inconveniences with accessing fares, which is also a barrier to increasing ridership further. And we have some digital fare technology proposals in the sort of years 2 through 5 of the capital budget to address that, and in the first year as well, fare system work. And then we have data limitations. So ridership counts are received by us every month, but it's only per route and per day rather than per stop or per hour. So we know, there's thousands of people who use Route 1 every day, but we don't know when are the buses most full and exactly at what stops are people getting on and off. We know that anecdotally through the drivers, but it would be very useful to have that information to be able to do better route planning in the future, and also to be able to better assign buses if we choose to have mini buses rather than full-size buses. On which routes could we run the less expensive mini buses without it causing capacity constraints? So most modern transit systems would have what are called automatic passenger counters, and that's one of the technology requests that's included in the 5-year capital plan. Operationally, we do have lower service hours per capita than comparable Canadian cities, and we have a desire to increase that and a plan to increase that over the coming 5 to 10 years. I think you'd probably be aware of the complaints that are relating to routes, evening services, East Royalty, Sunday services, and the seniors or community bus, and some accessibility concerns, particularly around the lack of paper schedules or limitation on paper schedules. They're largely only online, lack of audible stop announcements, and so on. And then on governance, I think we've had repeated conversations around the CATCC table where all parties are agreeing that we need to update the transit agreement. Continuing on in the report, it sort of shows each of the goals that was within the 10-year plan for the first 2 years and what we're reporting on as progress towards those 10-year goals. So service expansions are in progress, weekend service expansions are planned. Restructuring routes in Sherwood, Hillsborough, Stratford is planned, however is highly dependent on the capital plan, which, you know, Richard and Jessica discussed earlier, they require more bus fleet, a growth in our bus fleet to really implement those plans. I think the fleet question has already been addressed. On-demand transit was part of the 10-year plan, beginning with a sort of feasibility study for specific on-demand routes, and then in the second year of the capital plan procuring on-demand scheduling software so that it can begin to be implemented, and that conversation I'm very interested in having with province. We've heard about the new garage facility, bus stops, operating model, passenger counting, and so on. So I'll just leave my verbal report there and perhaps take any brief questions before we consider the next agenda item.
Mr. Chair. Page 127. For purpose, the terms of references for the CATCC requires a twice annual report to council on the state transit operations. Further, council requested staff provide an annual update on implementation of the 10-year transit plan. So when I go back to the August 13th resolution, 10-0, that council receive a 10-year receive, okay, not accept, not adopt, receive a 10-year public transit plan and accept the vision of plan with implementation pending further funding streams and city budget approvals. So that 10-year plan is ongoing right now, correct? And we're following the spirit of the resolution, which is accept the vision of the plan with implementation pending future funding. And the council requests staff to provide an annual progress report on the implementation of this plan. So when do we get that annual report? Is that this one right now?
That is this report.
Okay.
So this is the first annual report. You asked for annual reporting in August, you asked for annual reporting, and my plan is to be presenting it to you in November or December each year so that it coincides with budget and operational planning.
So page 128, extreme age of fleet, that's our responsibility. City of Charlottetown, not transit or trials. Poor bus stop conditions, that's our responsibility because we're responsible for the shelters. And I just want to ask, so those are areas that we have to correct. And that's not up to T3 or trials, that's us. And then it says operational, lower service hours per capita, 0.63 than comparable Canadian cities, 0.97 hours per capita. What cities are we comparing to? Toronto, Montreal?
No, we're
Fredericton?
comparing to what's called CUTA Group 4. So that's cities with population between 50,000 and 150,000. And we're not only looking at the population of Charlottetown there, it's Charlottetown, Cornwall, and Stratford combined, which is about 58,000, according to my best data anyway.
So just the last question, last Friday during our stakeholder meetings, Mike Cassidy and T3 were in to make a presentation. It was an open meeting, so it's live stream. The presentation is on our OneDrive, but if you wanted to get the presentation, Tracy would be glad to provide it. He made a comparison to Fredericton. And did you look at that
Yes,
comparison?
we were watching it, absolutely.
So any concerns, questions about that comparison that he gave us? Or would you want to leave that for?
I think his comparison is quite accurate. They have more service hours per capita, but they don't have such a focus as we do on the high frequency route on Route 1. The 65% of our ridership is on Route 1 that zooms up and down University Avenue 15 minutes every day or 10 minutes a day at peak hour. And as a result, our more peripheral routes don't have, or we've only just recently achieved sort of hourly frequency on most of our peripheral routes and half hourly at peak times. Whereas Fredericton has more distribution, and that tracks with what we know about transit from nearly every study that's ever been done, which is that frequency drives ridership.
Their geographical area is much larger than ours. It has the north side and the south side of the St. John River, so it's quite an expansive area. Richard probably knows about it because UNB graduate, Richard?
Yes, Your Worship.
So all I want to say is that the first two areas, transit, buses, that's our responsibility. That's where the recommendations have to come from you guys. And then
Capital budget.
and the bus stop is what we have to address. So other than that, I think we got a bad record. Like the bus stops are not that great by your report. We need to.
They're not.
They are not, so that's on us. And I think we have to clean that up. In terms of transit, I know last week when we did the seniors Christmas light tour, the transit buses that we use, and you weren't on it, the fold down ramp that provides easy access to the transit bus was excellent, worked very well for people in walkers. We didn't have anyone that came on board in a wheelchair, but there are 4 secure places there for our persons that are disabled in wheelchairs. So I think, we had a lot of work to do, and I think the capital budget, hopefully the capital budget will reflect that. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, no, and I'm just gonna echo your comments there on the bus stop conditions. If that falls back in the city, I'd like to see a task force putting on that. Like I know in Ward 8, I'm not sure who put up the signs, but some of them are on fence posts on the other side of the ditch, leaning on a slant, like it's, you have to go looking for the bus stop. And then there's other people, there's no sidewalks, they have to walk up Sherwood Road, I'll say it, to get to Lower Malpeck Road to a bus stop. It's just not safe, so I think this really needs to be looked at.
We agree completely, Mr. Chair.
Work in progress.
Anna's our first ever employee dedicated to transit and AT. So you will see great improvements over the years.
But I can give kudos to the Capital Area Transit Commission. They've been working for the last 20 years.
For sure.
Yeah, and they've done some great work as CAOs coming together from the 3 communities to ensure that the transit system is not only good in one area, it's good right across the region. So kudos go out to them too, without any point person to direct it.
Yep, for sure. Don't know how they did it.
Record ridership, it's working, it's good, it just,
It's a good
needs some
problem to have.
tweaking.
Well, look at the charts,
Yeah.
it's getting off the charts.
It's 1.4 million.
Right, so, I don't know, I think we gotta tip our hats to work that has been done. Can it be better? Yeah, sure, but, man, like, considering from where we started, where we are today, where we can potentially be, especially in light of where our new official plan and all that's going to, I think there's a lot of great work that's been done. Like I said, having people now dedicated a little bit more to it can do nothing but enhance it, so I think we have to be pretty proud of where it's gone and how far we've come. But don't stop there. Get at it.
Get it done.
Get it done.
Get it done.
Any questions?
On it, yeah.
No, I think that it's a work in progress. I thought it was a good presentation last Friday. Had a chance to talk to the contractors. I'd like to look at our governance model here sometime in the new year. How this program rolls out, whether it's quarterly basis or an annual basis. So right here today, what our responsibilities are versus what contractors' responsibilities are. So to look at something where community has an opportunity also to have dialogue with them as well. So I'll bring that up at a later date. But you mentioned, Anna, you mentioned the 15-minute intervals in University Avenue. You're not suggesting advocating that, are you?
We already have 15-minute
right.
frequencies on Route 1.
That's right, that's University Avenue.
Yes, yeah.
But you're not talking about diminishing that in any which way,
No,
shape, or form?
Not in any way. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I would be more advocating for achieving higher frequencies on other routes
Okay,
in order
no,
to drive up ridership on other routes.
I just wanted to get that clarification because that's been a great feature for the transit system. And I think it's made it much more of a buy-in. Old habits are hard to change and it's gonna take a while. Gotta keep in mind that system's only 20 years old. and when Mike Ashby come onto the scene. Not too many would have taken on that challenge. So we have a lot to be grateful here. A lot to be grateful for. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how much longer I can stay.
Yeah, no, we're gonna move into closed session here.
Yeah.
In a couple of seconds.
Yeah. Well, just to close this, Mr. Chair, I know that when it started back in 2005, I was a councillor, and there were some councillors saying that, why are we driving around with empty buses? Can't say that now, can you? Can't say that now.
So was it 1.4 million users last year? Was it, Council Beck? Was it?
Yeah, it's 1.5.
Thank you,
Motion moving.
Anna.
Thank you.
Need a motion to move into closed session? Councillor Beck, second by your worship, thank you. So motion to move into closed session Great, welcome back everyone. Oh, yeah, no worry. There's no business arising from the closed session at this point, so, and new business, your
New
worship.
business, Mr. Chair, I've spoken to Jessica about this, our manager of environment sustainability. This issue goes back to when we did have the active transportation task force in the previous council. And it was suggested by Jessica at the time, at the end of our last council, to look at a more capital region approach. So I just want to get more information on that because someone has been hired by the province, Logan Dawson, to coordinate a capital region advisory committee. And I'd like to have, ensure that we have representatives from the municipalities, and that is also residential citizen members to provide input. So I don't need it now, just for the next committee meeting, if we can have a report or just an update. That's it.
Thank you, your worship. Before we close, I'd like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and a very prosperous New Year and all the best and safe holiday season.
Same to you.
Motion to adjourn.
Christmas, joyeux Noël.
Thank you, Chair, for the extra long meeting.
I sense the sarcasm, Jessica, and
No, I
Sorry,
appreciate it.
moved and
I
seconded
appreciate